awesome people. The purpose of this video is to keep you connected with some sort of movement or yoga practice when you leave Bayside. So I am going to do a flow that incorporates a lot of the things that you're familiar with already. Nothing new that you've done in your time doing yoga at Bayside. And I'll try to make it as familiar as possible so that some of you that have been coming for a while and are more familiar with the poses would maybe even just be able to listen to this and not have to see it. But here we go. So we're going to start like we usually do and just get a space. It doesn't have to be really much bigger than your mat, and you don't even have to have a mat. You can lie down like on a blanket or a towel, or you can just be on the floor like I am. But as you know, it's a little bit more comfortable to have some padding underneath you. So set yourself up and then lay down on your mat and take a few breaths once you get on your mat, just to enter the yoga space. You probably won't be able to see all of me all of the time, but hopefully the parts that will be instructive. So once you've taken your few slow breaths, and you do want to take a slower breath when possible, begin to go into windshield wiper by taking your feet about mat distance apart and slowly allowing your legs to flow side to side. The distance that you take your feet, the pace that you're going, where you place your arms, what you're focusing on, what breath you're taking. These are all ways that you can modify your windshield wiper to fit your needs for the day. I'm doing hip distance apart. You guys may be able to see that I'm just on my heels. I like to do it that way occasionally. I like my arms, palms facing up, because this puts my shoulders into external rotation as a good postural reset from being hunched over. I like to inhale, knees up, and exhale, knees over. And just put that on repeat. Once you've done that enough times to feel kind of like a smooth glide and also to feel connected to your breath, you could try a figure 4 version of the stretch with your ankle on your knee. You can limit how far you go to each side by using your core and your back muscles, or you can gradually work up to going all the way down, again, to your comfort level, and do several passes back and forth, maybe guided by the pace of your breath, which is what I do, or maybe just deciding on a pace that feels soothing for your system. After you've done a few with your right ankle on your left knee, switch to your left ankle on your right knee. Sometimes I notice people are doing this with their bottom foot off the floor, which makes it a little bit harder. So that's another version. Having more of you on the floor makes things a little more supported and therefore a little bit more easeful. So you're choosing the options that meet the energy level that you have to spare today. Keep coming back to breath. Make sure you're taking a slower breath and that you are making room for breath. After you've done a few passes on your second side, hug your knees up to your chest. You can float your knees apart so that they are on the side of your body, and you can also reach for your feet. I would take the arms on the inside of the legs. You can just hold the feet together, or you can do a double lunge, which is like a happy baby position. You can rock around. You can leave that for another time. You could do knee circles, forward, to the right, away, and to the left. If you are doing knee circles, go the other way so that you are all even. Eventually, Take your feet back to the floor, come back to ankle to knee position, hang out here, or repeat side to side, or with breath, inhale the stretch up towards you and exhale back to the floor. Inhale, stretch towards you, exhale back to the floor. Remember to use your core. And try not to let your effort get in the way of your breath. Eventually hold up. You can hold without your arms or with your arms. You can do a little ankle mobility on that left foot. You can straighten out the leg, do a little ankle mobility. It just keeps the sensations passing through so you don't get stuck in one strong sensation. You're noticing that everything that rises up also transitions through. Some days you might want to use your arms, some days you might not want to use your arms. So decide what works best for today. After you feel like you're all done that one, you'll switch your sides, putting your foot on the floor, ankle to knee, up and down with breath. I do the inhale to lift up, the exhale to lower down. This way I'm always factoring in a breath. Back and forth at the pace of your breath. Eventually holding up with your arms or just holding up with your core, doing a little ankle mobility on your free foot. Maybe straightening out the leg and doing an ankle mobility there. If it's too intense, you can also hold on to the back of your leg and you can go up and down. So you're kind of visiting the stretch and then unvisiting the stretch. After you've had some time here, eventually come back down to 2 feet on the floor. When you get to 2 feet on the floor, you could revisit windshield wiper. Sometimes we do a floating windshield wiper. You can also do an ankle to knee windshield wiper or a floating ankle to knee windshield wiper, or just hug the knees to the chest or some kind of happy baby. And then eventually we'll take the knees and have them together and we'll roll over onto one side of the body. So I'm going to roll over onto my right side and I'm completely on my right side, curled up like a little ball. And then I'm going to take my left hand on my right hand. I don't put something under my head here. You could put a block under your head, or you can let your head come down to the floor and you'll notice that you're getting a deep stretch on this side, but you're also getting a little maybe tension on this side. So decide how you want to deal with your head and then start to move. And this is an upper body mobility movement. It involves your arm, your shoulder, and your upper back. So you're going to inhale, and sometimes we reach past the bottom hand. So I'm doing that here. And then inhale, reach your arm up towards the sky, and then exhale. And what I'm going to do is try to move my upper back. So I'm going to lay it on the floor. This is your upper back twisting. And then I'm going to reach my left arm way over to the left and maybe look left. If your arm doesn't go down onto the floor, don't worry about it. We'll just pass through a couple times. Inhale, arm up. Exhale, hand to hand or past hand. Inhale, arm back up. Exhale, over to the left. Inhale up. Exhale, hand to hand or past hand. There's another version of this where we sweep the arm over the head and back around. So it's like you're making a big rainbow over your head on the floor. You can go back and forth that way. You can continue to lift up and over. There's another one that I do sometimes where you just drag your hand on your arm across your chest and then out to the side. Figure out how to keep coming back to your breath. A breath system, or just reminding yourself to continuously breathe smoothly and calmly. Eventually, we'll be back in the twist. You can stay here as long as you like. Eventually, bring the knees back up and switch your side. So when you switch your sides, you just flip over and then roll onto your left side. So you didn't need to turn around like I just did. I didn't want to have my back to you. I'm just going to put my head where it feels best for me, and then start to, with breath, inhale up and exhale over. Several different ways to do this. If you have a shoulder injury, then you know that you might have to do your sides differently. Every side is an opportunity to just pay attention to what this particular side might be asking for or needing. Eventually, you might be in your twist. You might hold this for a moment. Just paying attention to where you're connected to the ground, so that you can reconnect to where your support is and find some ease. When you come out, you'll inhale your knees back up to your chest, or maybe you just want them on the floor. Maybe you're doing a little windshield wiper, or a hug the knees, or a happy baby, or anything else that you want to do before we come up to sit. When you come up to sit, just come up to sit your way and sit for a moment, a few moments, with either your ankles crossed or with the soles of your feet together. Adjust so that it feels like you can upright your pelvis, which is just going to naturally upright your spine. Squeeze your shoulders up, exhale, let them down. Squeeze your shoulders up with your inhale, exhale, let your shoulders down. Notice how that feels. Squeeze them up and exhale, let them down. And then sometimes we hold up and just consciously create a little bit of tension in order to kind of tire out the lifted shoulder syndrome. And I'm also holding my breath usually when I'm not talking, holding at the top of the inhale, and then feeling like a flushing or a releasing when you exhale your breath through and let your shoulders down. And then just notice how that feels, and start to do flexion extension of the spine when you're ready. This is neutral that we're starting from. When you exhale and you round your back, I'm not very good at rounding my back, but when you round your back, you want to feel like you're slumping forward, like you've given into gravity, like you have a tortoise shell on your back, which I don't illustrate very well. That's your exhale. When you inhale, you're going to be lifting the chest, holding the navel to the spine, opening the heart, and maybe looking up. You can leave your hands wherever you like them best and go back and forth here between flexion and extension. If you want to do more movement, extension could be back on the arms, leaning back and looking up, and flexion could be forward on the arms, resting down. Inhale into whatever version of extension you're doing. Exhale into whatever version of flexion you're doing. Eventually, end on the extension so that when you come back to neutral, it feels like you're sitting up extra tall. Twist to your right, left hand on right knee, right hand back behind. If you want to challenge yourself not to use as much support, take your right arm back behind your back. Inhale as you're coming back to the center. Exhale to the left, right hand on the left knee. Lean on your arm. You can even be leaning back if you need to be. Eventually, you'll be sitting up straight, and eventually you'll notice you can wrap your arm back behind your back. Stay in your comfort zone. Stay in what feels comfortable to you. Inhale, come back to the center. Side bend to the right, leaning on the right arm, taking your left arm up and over the cheek. You can choose where you put your head so your neck is always comfortable. Inhale, back up. Exhale, over to the left. Sweep your right arm up and over. If your shoulder doesn't want to do this, keep your hand somewhere else. Behind the back, resting on the leg, at the heart. Inhale, slowly come up. I, for some reason, always like to do side bends twice. Just follow the rhythm of your breath and follow what your body is asking for. Listen in. We'll slowly come back up. If you want to switch out your feet, you could switch out your feet. If you're sitting with the soles together, you can choose to bring them closer and further away. I'm going to go with cross legs, and then take your hands forward, and you can keep your posture active like this, where you're still upright. Even when you start leaning forward, if you keep your chest up and your chin slightly lifted, we're still in an active posture. So it doesn't matter how far you go down, you can stay in your active posture, or you could decide that you want to come into a passive posture. And when I say passive, I mean your postural muscles, the muscles that keep your spine upright, soften and become more passive, and then you end up stretching them instead of strengthening them. So this is a little bit more of a passive posture or flexion. Might feel like your back is softly rounding like a tortoise shell, I say often. And you're also getting, in addition to your back stretch, a hip stretch, a leg stretch, a neck stretch. Making space for breath always. And transitioning to a child's pose when you're ready. So you can come up and take your legs to the side. You'll come to a kneeling position, separate the knees, and then come forward, or you'll roll over your feet like we do in class sometimes. You'll have your toes together, knees apart, stretch the arms forward, drop the head. Don't drop the head. Lightly place the head on the floor. You can lift the hands and place them together, point them to the sky, or face the palms to the shoulders. Stretching your elbows forward and towards each other makes for a deeper stretch, but you want to keep the hips back and down at the same time. Other arm positions would be straight forward, hands under the head, arms reaching back for the feet behind you. If your hips are up and you do this, you're going to put a lot of pressure on your head. So you probably only want to reach back for your feet if your hips are pretty close to your heels, so that when you put your head on the floor, you're not receiving most of the pressure in the head and the neck. When you're transitioning into what's next, you'll come to a tabletop position, and you can always reach ahead of your mat in front of your knees and pick some up and then fold it and then place your knees on the fold, so you have a little extra padding underneath your knees. I like toes tucked under for this. I like arms underneath the shoulders. You could be on your fists or your forearms. That's going to be harder actually, or your fingertips if your wrists bother you. When you find your comfortable tabletop, engage the core without changing your neutral spine. So just keep your back natural, engage the spine, and then we're going to be a three-legged table for a moment. Right arm forward, up towards the sky, back towards the wall behind us, and then finishing the circle along the side body. Left arm forward, up, back, and around. Do your right side again at your own pace. Maybe you're going slower than me, maybe you're going faster. The movement and the tempo should feel soothing to your system and breathable. Once you're back in tabletop, keep your toes tucked under and stretch the underside of your feet. You can stay head lifted on the hands, or you can come down onto the forearms, rest your head on your hands. Notice the sensations. Adjust if they are too intense. Breathe through the ebb and flow of sensations. The sensations are constantly changing. Stretching your arms forward. I'm going to keep my toes tucked under here. And look forward towards your hands. You can come to a low forearm plank here by just kind of sliding your arms forward and sliding your feet back. So you would be in a low plank here. Or you could alternatively come to a half plank by looking forward and coming onto the hands and the knees and being in like a knee version of a push-up. From here, if you like to do a little bit more, you can have the toes tucked under, lift off the knees, and you're in a full plank. Take a full inhalation in your plank, and if it's too intense to come all the way down onto the floor without coming onto the knees, then come down onto the knees when you need to and slowly lower the rest of the way down. When you get down onto the floor, rest your head on your left hand, bend your right knee and reach back and hold onto your right foot. So we're doing a quad stretch. And keeping track of your breath in the stretch is a really good idea. So taking at least 5 slow breaths on one side is usually enough time to affect the muscle lengthening, and also keeping track of the breath keeps you from wandering too far away from this moment, what's happening right now. After about 5, switch your sides. If you can't reach your foot, grab your pants or a towel around your ankle. If you feel this in the lower back, keep your glutes engaged, like you're pushing your hips into the ground and tucking your tailbone. If you can keep your hips neutral though, that's also fine. After you've done 5 breaths on each side, you could add your other leg in and do this double quad stretch, or you can try to lift everything up and do a bow pose. So decide. If you don't want to do either of those, coming back to child's pose, which is where we're going to eventually end up, is a good idea. So you can come out whenever you're ready, come into an extension that works for you. I'm going to do a really low cobra. So I'm just taking my hands underneath my shoulders and lifting up. You can lift up as high as you like, and eventually make your way back to child's pose. You're gonna feel where your knees are, lift your hips, curl into the knees, and you're back in a child's pose. I like to have the knees together for this one and let my body round over the legs. Arms anywhere you like. Any variation of this works. This is just a direct counter pose to what we were just doing, which was extension. So we're back in flexion. Let's string another one of those together. Kind of like a little mini sun salutation, maybe without the quad stretch. So you're gonna be from your child's pose, tuck your toes under, have your feet about hip distance apart, arms forward, come into the plank that's working for you. Maybe it's a low plank, maybe it's a regular plank, maybe it's a plank on the knees. Take a full inhalation in the plank that's working best. You can lower down like you're doing a push-up, but if that's difficult, you can also lower down your hips first, and then the torso, and then the chest. When you come into extension, let's start on the forearms. Do a forearm extension with the shoulders down. Transition to a Shalabhasana extension with the arms back and the legs up. Transition to a cobra, legs down, hands under the shoulders, lift a little bit, or keep on lifting for an upward facing dog, shoulders down, core strong, little squeeze on the glutes, back to child's pose. Any version of child's pose that feels right for you. From child's pose, lift your hips, cross your ankles, Take your hands near your knees and roll over your legs, or take your legs around the side by leaning onto one arm, coming onto one hip, and eventually coming into Baddha Konasana. Checking the time. Perfect. Soles of the feet together. I like further away. Maybe you like closer in. It's different, so feel around. Maybe the way you did it last time isn't going to work today. So see where you want to put your feet. Hold onto your feet or your ankles or your knees and lift the chest, and try to also lift the hips into perpendicular to the floor. So I want to try to have this little curve in my lower back. That is made more possible the farther your legs are away from you, or if you sit on a bolster or a pillow. And as your hips and your legs open up, that will also happen. So as you come forward, I'll go this way again. Try to keep your back in the same positioning as it was when you were trying to sit up straight. You're still sitting up straight. Your hips are just tipping your spine forward. So go as far forward without rounding your back. When you feel like you're going to round your back, hold off on letting it round for a few slow breaths. If the mind is busy, the breath is the resting spot. Rest your mind on the breath. Maybe you're going into a more passive position with the spine. So when I go into a passive position, my back doesn't round that much. And maybe yours does, and maybe yours doesn't. When you go into a passive position, just let gravity do more and you resist less. It doesn't really matter what it looks like on the outside, but it feels different. It feels like a letting go, surrendering. If you have a bulging disc, this may not be the right position for you, so you can always modify and be somewhere in between. If you're really far down and you want to take your arms underneath your shins, you could take your arms underneath your shins. You could have your head up so your posture is active. You could have your head more down so your posture is a little softer. I'm going to keep my head up today. But stay within what feels breathable, comfortable, and nourishing. When you're coming out, engage the core, untangle yourself from your legs, put your feet flat on the floor, any distance apart, hold on to the shins, and stretch the back out a bit. Have your feet about mat distance apart. We're doing a seated windshield wiper, which is also called 90 and 90. So your legs are at about a 90-degree angle. Your hands are on your shins or on your legs or back behind you, or you're using no hands. Knees over to the right. In order to get this left knee down, my left hip is not on the floor. Right arm back behind you, left hand on the right knee and looking over the right shoulder. Before coming all the way back to start the other side, look at your right leg, move it to the right as much as you can. If it doesn't move, then leave it where it was. Take your hands forward in front of your shin and come down onto the forearms. If you can come down head on the hands, do. If it's a good enough stretch just to be on the forearms, do. If you have room behind you and you want to take your left leg and straighten it out and then come more towards the knee, so roll onto the knee. Then you'll be in a more classic pigeon pose. If that feels too intense, stay with the knee out to the side. After And you can pause this video if you want to stay longer somewhere. Just kind of moving a little at a quick pace today to keep this video a little bit shorter. But yeah, you could just press pause. I'm going to come up now. So I'm going to come up onto my forearms, come up onto my hands. I like to challenge myself not to use the hands. I'm going to just make sure that my left leg came back into this 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to inhale up onto the feet. And I'm going to exhale, knees over to the left. In order for my right knee to come down comfortably, I have to let my right hip come up off the floor. And then I've got like a 90-degree angle on both legs, and I'm taking my right hand on my left knee, left hand back behind me, and I'm looking over the shoulder and breathing. If you like to challenge yourself, you could take the hand that was supporting, propping you up, and you can wrap it back behind your back. When you're coming out, before you come all the way out, look at your left leg. See if you can move it to the left a little bit. Come down onto your forearms. You can hang out here. You can stretch out your back leg and face your kneecap towards the floor. Or you could come down, rest your head down for a few breaths. You hang out a little longer if you like. Eventually come up onto the forearms, come up onto the hands, or try to use no hands. Come back to our original starting position. Take a moment. Thank you. And we're gonna roll onto the back here. So when you roll onto your back, make sure there's nothing behind you. Grab the back of your legs, round your back. Remember, I'm trying to round my back, it just isn't round. And I'm gonna roll down onto the back very, very carefully using the core. You could do a lot of different things here. River dance. That might be an inside joke. River dance or windshield wiper or happy baby or unhappy baby. And then we're gonna get to hip extension. So you're gonna have your feet flat to the floor, your arms where you like them best. Set up your feet and play around with where you put them. You can start by placing them where they feel like they're gonna give you the most leverage. But you can play around with that. You could take them further away. You could be on your heels. You could take them really far away from you, which makes it a lot harder. But you might want to start with where it feels optimal. Push down through the feet. Take the curve that's under your back and push it down to the floor. Squeeze your buns, not with your hands, just engage your glutes, and then slowly lift the hips up. When you get as high as you can go, on the exhale, slowly lower down. On the inhale, slowly lift up so you can feel your spine is lifting up the floor in segments. And then slowly lower down so you're placing your spine back on the floor in segments. Inhale, lift the hips, the lower back, the middle back. Try to come up to your upper back if your upper back will do that today. We'll support you today. And then exhale, slowly lower down. Upper back, middle back, lower back, and hips. You can do arms with this as well, palms facing down. Inhale, lift your arms up. As you lift your hips up, I'm gonna let my hands come to the floor above my head. Exhale, try to lower down and have your hands and your hips hit at the same time or land at the same time. Inhale to lift the hips and the arms. Exhale to lower down. Inhale to lift up. When you know you're doing your last lower down, take your hands over your shoulders. So right hand on left shoulder, left hand on right shoulder. Articulate the spine on the way down, upper back, middle back, lower back. And finally, hips, hug the knees to the chest. You could do knee circles. You could just give yourself a big hug or a happy baby or a windshield wiper, whatever is feeling called for at this time. So I'm going to have us have some Shavasana time. And if there's something that you want to do before you finish your yoga practice, something that feels like it completes you and allows you to feel still, some things that we sometimes do are a regular twist with one leg up. Sometimes we do a figure 4 twist with an ankle to a knee. You could do it to the right side, but you could also do it to the left side. This is the one that I like. You can do a lying down butterfly pose or Baddha Konasana, bringing the soles of the feet together and allowing the knees to open out to the side, or anything else that feels like it would be nurturing at this time. And then you're going to set yourself up for a Shavasana. And instead of including that time here, I am going to close out. And it's good in your Shavasana to spend like at least 5 to 10 minutes just lying down, practicing mindfulness or whatever feels spacious for you after yoga. And when we finish, you can come back to this if you want so that we do it together. I'm going to do it here. And it's just what we normally do when we finish class at Bayside. So you'll be, after your Shavasana, sitting up tall, noticing all the sensations that are present, breathing through them, noticing the natural ebb and flow of your breath. And then we're sealing in whatever was good. I like to name it and place it in my hand. Engage that to the center of the body. Other hand protectively on top. Nod or bow forward. The Sanskrit prayer that I'm saying, Om Bolo, Shri Sat, Guru, Maharaj Ki Jai, Hari Om, Tat Sat. Inhale, slowly come up. Anjali Mudra, which focuses and directs intention and energy. We're going to the third eye. A reminder to live in wisdom. To the lips. A reminder to live in truthfulness and clarity. And then to the heart. Sometimes we tip the fingertips forward. This is our heart flowing out to others. A reminder to live with love, compassion, self-compassion, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and gratitude. Namaste. Thank you for practicing and putting your light into the world. I'll see you soon. Bye.